Live.
Hi everybody and welcome to our hangout for this month, which is all about our shared endeavour. Well, what I consider to be part of our shared endeavour. The shared endeavour this year is all about visualisation and your place. And part of what I see as visualisation is about how to actually put the records together to create a bigger picture about your study. So I'm going to be presenting to you a little bit of information about the 1939 register, which has recently been published for those of us who have place studies in the, well, I would say United Kingdom, but I possibly should say England and Wales, actually. So I'm just going to get my PowerPoint up and hopefully we'll be able to screen share and all of that exciting stuff. It's always the scary part, this, but we'll give it a good crack. So let me just go back a secondo. I always love this bit. While I'm just sorting that out, the 1939 register was basically taken on the 29th of September in 1939, and it provides kind of like a snapshot of the civil registration or the civilian population of England and Wales just before the outbreak of World War II. So if I can just see, I can't multitask. It's a myth, actually. It's an absolute myth that we can multitask, us ladies. Right, there we go. Let's screen share that. There we go. We're all sorted. Now you can't see me and you can see my screen, I hope.
Yep.
So the 1939 register, as I say, was taken on the 29th of September 1939. Now, some people do call it a census because it's pretty similar to a census, but actually it's not exactly like that. It's arranged along similar lines and includes similar but less detailed information in some parts. So it provides, as I mentioned, a snapshot of the civilian population of England and Wales just after the outbreak of World War II. Records were basically used to produce an up-to-date population statistic and also the identification cards. And once the rationing was introduced in January of 1940, it was used to facilitate the issuing of those rationing cards as well. The information on the register was used to administer conscription and to also monitor and control the movement of population, because obviously, as most of you who've done anything on World War II will realise, there was quite a lot of evacuation during World War II. And it's a really useful resource, the 1939 register, for family, social and local historians, because the 1931 census was destroyed by fire during World War II. So the 31 census no longer exists, and there was no census taken in 1941 because of World War II. And so this provides really the most complete survey of the population between 1921 and 1951. So it's kind of a really good snapshot, and we're very lucky to have it slightly earlier than the usual 100-year closure. The details for the 1939 register include quite a lot of things. It was designed to capture the whereabouts of the civilian population, as I mentioned, on that specific date of the 29th of September. It includes the address, a schedule number, a sub number, the surname of the person that's actually in the register, first name or first names, a role, particularly an occupation, and sometimes that had more information. For the institutions, as I've put in there, there's officers, visitors, servants and things like that. The gender of the person, their date of birth, maybe the right one, maybe not. Their marital status, maybe the right one, maybe not. And also, as I mentioned, the occupation. So the roles are for the institutions in terms of whether they're actually supposed to be there by virtue of work or because they have to be there by virtue of being incarcerated if they're in prison, or whether they're there because they're an inmate of a hospital or whatnot like that. So the records do include the civilian populations of England and Wales, which is why I vaguely said United Kingdom and then purposefully corrected myself, because it's not all of the United Kingdom. It does include England and Wales, but the records don't include the Channel Islands, the Isle of Man, Northern Ireland or Scotland, and those records are separate. So the information that relates to people living in Scotland are on the National Records of or are with the National Records of Scotland, and the same is true for Northern Ireland, you'd contact the Public Record Office of Northern Ireland. The register wasn't meant to record members of the armed forces, and so that it doesn't feature army barracks, which one would normally find in a census, or Royal Navy stations, Air Force stations, members of the armed forces that were billeted in homes, and so on and so forth. But it does include members of the armed forces who are on leave and civilians that are on military barracks. So just to give you an example, this is an example after I finally found my place in the 1939 register. I kid you not, it's on and off taken me about 3 months of looking for it. For those of you that don't know where my place is, my two places, Tetcott and Luffincott, are remarkably small parishes on the border of Devon and Cornwall. And if you put in Tetcott into the 1939 register, you do actually get some results, but they're in Chelsea in London, which is a Tetcott road. So you don't actually get anything if you put it into the keywords or anything at all. And if you put in Luffincott, you get nothing. So this is a particular example of Bone Street, which is in Tetcott. And actually, when I did find the 1939 register for my place, it was all in one particular block of register pages. There are 6 pages that cover Tetcott, Luffincott, and a small part of another parish as well. So this is Bone Street, and you can see there are 5 properties, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and there's that sub record reference that I was mentioning, the sub record, which is numbers 25, 26, 27, and 28. Most of these are open for people to read. You've got the Madge family, the Jeffrey family, a Silliphant family. No connection with me whatsoever, that. The Hunkin family and the Lee family. And it gives you male, female, male, female, male, female, and a couple of extra bits that have been added in along the road. So we've got Ernest Ivor. So actually, although he was recorded as Ivor, somebody over the years has added in Ernest. You've got all of the birth dates. You've got whether they're married or widowed, as you can see on Frederick Lee, and single right at the bottom for Donald Lee, and then all of their occupations. And you can see that one of them was actually ARP. Looks like utility. I've probably cropped the side off there. In fact, no, I know that it wasn't actually carried on. So it was an ARP utility something or other. Looks like squadron. So there were other people that were special constables and so on and so forth. So it gives you a really good snapshot of that particular street. I mean, I do more than just that street. There's only probably about 10 more houses in my entire place, but but I do look at the whole thing. So you can see at the bottom there, you've got a record that says this record is officially closed. An individual's records remain closed, or information in them is redacted for 100 years from their date of birth, or until some kind of proof of death has been verified. So if you had a child, maybe Donald Lee might have died in infancy. So there may be a record that's very clear for Find My Past, who've indexed all of these, maybe very clear for them to see that actually Donald Lee died in 1940 or something. So his particular record is visible. The same with Beatrice A. Hunkin, although she's less than 100 years old because she was born in 1919. Clearly somebody somewhere knows that she's passed away, and therefore her information is visible. I have actually, saying that, met somebody who's seen herself on the 1939 register as an open record. So it just goes to show that perhaps it's not perfect, maybe. So she wasn't particularly concerned at all, but you know, just an interesting one that somebody's obviously slipped through the net, and there probably are others as well. So in order to access all of this, it's only on Find My Past. You can access it if you go to Kew yourself. So if you go up to the National Archives in Kew in London here, then you can actually search for free. But it's on Find My Past for those who have the appropriate subscription. So if we look at some of my place, for some reason it's not actually going to go forwards. My computer's just having a funny five. This is a particular property that has always fascinated me. This is a new one, and I'm sorry it's a little bit fuzzy, but it's taken from an estate agent's website from when they actually sold the property back in 2011. Now, clearly, this is not the property that was originally there, clearly, but Stop a Little has always fascinated me as I've driven through the very windy and very, very narrow roads of Luffincott. And I always used to drive past Stop a Little, and the house was way, way, way back from the road, and you could see why it was called Stop a Little, because you would have to stop a little to see it. And it was very, very run down when I first started going down to Devon and looking into these two places of Luffincott and Tetcott. And I was quite delighted when I saw the sold sign for the land. I wasn't quite so delighted when they knocked down the complete original building and built this. Not quite so pleased with that one, but at least the land's been used for something good, and it does really change the landscape from what was there before, which is very, very overgrown and a rather derelict looking building. So this is what they've now built for Stop a Little in Luffincott. And so I looked up Stop a Little, as I say, once I managed to actually find my place in the 1939 register, and I discovered that it was, I won't say owned by, but the head of the household was a William Abbott, who was a retired carpenter born in 1865, with his seemingly wife, Mary Ann Abbott, a wife of unpaid domestic duties, which comes up quite a lot. If you look on many, many, many 1939 registers for ladies, it comes up with unpaid domestic duties. It rarely says wife first, so this is quite unusual. We then have Edward Abbott. Now, I could probably take a wild punt that he's a son of William and Mary Ann, but you'll notice that there aren't any relationships actually recorded on here. So we don't actually know whether he's the son or not. We've got his birth date of the 30th of July 1901 even. He's single and a farm labourer. And then we've got a fairly difficult name to read there. It's James, although it looks a little bit wonky at the end. A James H. Abbott. He was born in 1869. So again, I'm guessing that perhaps James H. Abbott was perhaps the brother of William, the head of the household, who was also a retired carpenter. And then we've got one redacted record at the bottom. Now, of course, being good place studiers, we've probably got baptisms, marriages and burials for most of our parish. So I could go back and I could search and find out potentially who that was, if it was perhaps a child of William and Mary Ann. But of course it might not be. It could have been a servant. It could have been anybody. But you can use those records to assist with the search to try and find out who those other people are. Now, of course, the best part about this, as I mentioned right at the beginning, is I'm very much a reconstructor, if that's a word. I think it probably is. But I like to reconstruct my parish. So I like to put it back together and think, okay, so who are these people and how long did they live at Stop a Little? Now, it clearly doesn't look like that when they lived there. But that was the place that they lived in within my parish of Luffincott. So if I go backwards rather in time, this is the 1911 census. So we're talking 38 years prior to the 1939 register. Well, you can see the one that's slightly highlighted on number 3, William Abbott. He's 45 here. Well, if we do the maths, if we just briefly pop back to the 1939 register, he was born in 1865. So if we go forwards, he's 45. Which makes him exactly the same person that was there 38 years later. So he's here. He's the son-in-law of Christopher Lashbrook, who's the head of the household in 1911, and a widower aged 84. Pretty good age, I'd say. He was a labourer, and his daughter, Annie Abbott, presumably Annie Lashbrook before she married, was married for 22 years and had 3 children by William Abbott. But the interesting thing is, of course, we've got the relationships on here. So we know that they have 2 children, Ernest and Edward. So again, I'll pop you back to the 1939 register. And here we have Edward. No Ernest though, but I wonder if perhaps one of the other records underneath there might have been another child, as I mentioned, of William and Mary Ann. Possibly a younger one, maybe one that fitted in the middle between Ernest and Edward, who knows. Stop a Little was not a mansion by a long stretch. It looks like one now, but it certainly wasn't back then. And you can see that actually here on the record, you've got a small part where someone's written Tetcott and crossed it out and put Luffincott over the top. And that is the story of Stop a Little's life. Because Stop a Little seems to change from one parish to the other, and back again, and back again, from one census to the next. So if I actually do a total number of people in my parishes at any given time on a census, it fluctuates vastly from one census to another, because they change the blooming parish boundaries. So in one census you'll have 90 residents in Luffincott, and in the next one you'd only have 50. It's not because they've all died, it's because the parish boundaries have changed and they've decided to put properties in a different parish for that particular census. Makes my statistics not so easy to do. But if we go back again to 1901, you'll see actually here, this is written on the actual census. It's written, you can probably see my mouse there, I hope. It's written right up the side there. So I've twisted it round so that you don't have to sit there at your PCs and twist your head at 90 degrees. But this is 10 years prior again. And we've still got William Abbott, son-in-law, living at Stop a Little. So this gives me a really good indication that some of these families do not move. You've got 40 years nearly here, and they're in the same house. And the interesting thing for me as well is they're not only in the same house, but they're still doing the same jobs. Because if you'll remember on the last page I showed you Christopher Lashbrook was a retired labourer. He's a labourer on this census 10 years earlier. And William Abbott is a carpenter. So you've got two people whose occupations do not change. But we have got the other child in here of William Abbott and Annie, or sometimes known as Mary Ann. So we've got William, looks like ED, and a Hilda M, maybe an H in the middle there. They clearly gave their children lots of middle names to try and make them stand out from the crowd, which of course is very helpful when we're doing tracing of anybody within our places, especially if those names are fairly prolific in the area. So you can see, as I mentioned, this part that I've turned around on its side for you, that this property was in the ecclesiastical parish of Tetcott Holy Cross, but in the civil parish of Luffincott. So that's why it continually seems to change from one part to the other in a census. But at least this one actually helped us and recorded, you know, the fact that it was in the civil parish of one and ecclesiastical parish of the other. So we can put it all together actually by putting one of the baptisms in there and actually seeing what the baptism says. Now you may be able to see it's a little bit fuzzy at the bottom there. I think this one was in pencil compared to the two above which were in pen. But you've got an Edward James Christopher Abbott of William and Anne Abbott, and he was a carpenter. Now, how many people can say that they have 11 years nearly between two baptisms in a register like I can? 1891 on the top one, 1902 on the next one. 11 years gap. You can see how small my place is. But what I love about the 1939 register is it just gives you that information that you are never going to get anywhere else in that time period. So that's taking us back 10 more years just to finish off my little Stop a Little story. And you've still got a labourer, Christopher Lashbrook, Annie Abbott, William Abbott. So for 50 whole years, they lived in the same place, still at Stop a Little. And I'm sure they probably, if they could see Stop a Little now, would die to live in that house. It's a bit different to the one that was there before, for definite. Certainly a more affluent property than the one that's there now. Now, just thinking about those people that you can't find in the 1939 register, now I've given you a little bit of a case study in how it can help. Why can't you find someone you're looking for? Because I'm sure if you've delved into the 1939 register, there are probably tens of people that you cannot find. If they were born less than 100 years ago, the record is closed because they're deemed to potentially still be alive, unless somebody somewhere, either a record that's publicly available or you've actually sent it in, you can prove that that person has actually died. Maybe they weren't in England or Wales on the 29th of September 1939, so they won't be there. Maybe they weren't included. For numerous reasons that could be possible, or they appear under a false or a false name or a pseudonym. The name may not be exactly as you expect. My own grandmother is in there, but it's not exactly written as I would expect it to be. My paternal grandmother. I'll just stop sharing my screen and come back in the room with you. My paternal grandmother is not actually on the 1939 register at all. My maternal, the other one, is not on the 1939 register at all. And that will be because she started off her life as Queenie May Evans, not born in Wales, thankfully, although she spent most of her life swearing blind that she was connected to Wales in some way back in history, although I wish she was still here now because I could tell her it was a load of rubbish. But anyway, that's another story entirely for another night. But she was born as Queenie May Evans, and she married twice. So she married just prior to the war, and she lost her first husband in World War II and married again and became Queenie May Day, and then changed her name by deed poll in the 1950s because she didn't like being called Queenie May, so she just changed her name to, quite literally, plain Jane. So she was Jane Day, and then died in the Canary Islands. So I can cope with the fact that nobody's managed to connect that. But maybe one day I'll write into Find My Past when I have time and say, actually, she has died, and this is how the connections are actually made. But there are loads of reasons why, and I know that there's been lots of talk about, because we always do when we get new records, we moan and whinge and whine about bad transcription, but it's online, and it's a record that we didn't have a year ago. So actually, do you know what? We should be really grateful. So, sometimes I know Ros and I were in a hangout just about a week ago where someone was talking about, and I've seen this a couple of times, where the male and female occupations are mistranscribed and they're transposed. So you've got a woman who's a gardener and a male who's the unpaid domestic duties. And it's just switched around, the wrong way. So there's lots of problems, but it's there. And I think for a place study, it's amazing because I don't find it very easy to track through the 20th century for my place, apart from through baptisms, marriages and burials. And of course, some of those aren't available because they're actually still with the parish. The actual books are still with the parish, so it's very difficult to actually track through and find out more about the place in the last 100 years. It's easy prior to that because the records are so much better. But for me, that register is priceless. Now I've found the ruddy thing. So that's it from me in terms of an introduction. I don't know if anybody else would like to pitch in or ask any questions about the 39 register or share their own experiences, because I think everybody in the room at least has a 39 register place in England and Wales. They've all got place, even Darius and Alex, who aren't based in England. You've all got places here.
Well, one thing that I've found surprising is that there are a lot of people who are dead,
yeah,
who actually died during the Second World War, and they're still redacted because they don't, they carried on updating this register for years after the Second World War, including updating women's maiden names to their married names and marking who has actually died.
Yeah.
But the people who actually died during the war, they don't seem to have done that.
No, I think it's kind of some of them, especially if they were not in the normal death indexes. I think it's kind of harder for the connections to be made on that. So I think if they're in the normal death registers rather than the forces or World War II, on the Commonwealth war graves, I don't think the connections have been made there so much in terms of unredacting. Is that a word?
Yeah, yes.
I'm making up new words this evening. But you made a good point there, Susie, that I didn't mention so much there in terms of the marriages and having the lady's married name sort of crossed out the old one and put the new one on top. And that particularly for me is really good because TechCot, my marriage register, as I've probably mentioned on a Hangout before, is completely destroyed.
Yes.
So I can kind of match up some of those later marriages without having to purchase the certificates, which, for a place study, if you're buying the entire register, basically, gets a little bit expensive.
Yeah.
I've got the bands, so some of those will help, but it certainly helps when you haven't got anything to give you a guide.
Yes. Well, I agree with you. I'm really grateful they've made this. I think this is a wonderful resource, and I've got an awful lot of extra information out of it.
Yeah.
Because it's really difficult to get in between now and 1911. Apart
Exactly
from
that.
stuff out of trade directories. And I think this is absolutely brilliant.
I think it's the same with everything that you get that's a new resource. You just have to take it with a bit of a pinch of salt and, check everything that's there. And if you've got a date of birth that really doesn't float your boat, then check it out.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've got some that are 10 years out. Literally 10 years. I mean, there's quite a few that are sort of a year out, and so they've sort of said, oh, it was 1894 when it was 1895. But we've had, I think, a couple that have been big chunks out, like 1895 to 1905, which just seems remarkable. Maybe they just look good for their age. I don't know. Trying to get away with. Well, I was going to say, trying to get away with, like, on a marriage certificate, where people, like, there's big difference in terms of ages. Maybe they were just carrying it on for the 1939 register too.
Well, perhaps they were hoping not to get called up.
Well, if it's men, probably, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Can I ask a question? Kirsty, how exactly do you search for your place? Because I'm
for
like
me,
you, I
don't.
Find it.
Yeah, well, if you're searching on the actual 1939 register for a place that is a place, which clearly mine isn't, then you can just go into the address part of it. So instead of searching for a person, there's two tabs on the top. I'll just share my screen, actually. I'll go in, Ros, and I'll show you the bits that, like, how I did it. Well, I'll rephrase that. How I tried to do it and utterly failed because it wasn't there. I'll just pull it onto a different window because otherwise it's going to get a little bit complicated.
Well, I've tried and utterly failed, so I've been rather put off.
Yeah, well, I was for a long while, actually. There we go, you can see that, so I'll just go across to that one. Yeah, so basically what I was trying to do was go into address. So what I tried to do for a while was put in a borough district, and like I say, I put in TechCot, nothing. Tried doing Luffincott, which is the small parish that's next door. I also tried doing Holsworthy, which is the nearest larger, not particularly massive, town. But as you can see from the problem I have there, you've got the rural and urban district. Well, how the hell do I know what you're going to put TechCot in? If you're not putting it in as TechCot, then I'm frankly, piddling in the wind, as they say.
All I can see is a picture of you.
Oh.
I can't see the picture of the screen.
I can see your screen, Kirsty. I can see your screen, Kirsty.
I can see it on the Hangout screen.
No.
Oh, how bizarre! Must be a time lag between me and you down in Somerset.
Right. So you're going to have to rewind a bit because I completely missed all of that.
The only search bit I did, Ros, was saying that Holsworthy, as you can see now, comes up with either RD, Rural District, or UD, Urban District. Well, how do I know what TechCot and Luffincott are going to come under? I mean, I would say they're rural district, but if they're not coming up as a borough or district themselves, you know, how on earth do I have a clue? I mean, your place is South Pool, isn't it?
Yes.
If I put in South Pool, we're not getting anything.
No, but it probably comes under Kingsbridge.
Okay, so we can put in Kingsbridge.
Which has a rural district or an urban district?
No, it only has one. It only has the one. I've just clicked on that one. Oh, no, you're right.
Oh, it has
I was too quick. Too quick. Yeah, so you've got both of them there. But what I did to find my place, I'll just unshare that a second. What I did to find mine, as I put in the pre-Hangout blog, was I put a particular person. Well, I actually tried it about 5 times before it worked. But I went through my baptism register from 1911 to 1925 to find the fathers that were producing children.
Right.
And hope to God they were still in the parish in 1939, which for the first 4 or 5 I failed on. But once I'd got it, I think it was, in fact, I actually put in a lady in the end and found it. It was Emmeline Lee. I did Ernest Glidden, which is one of the ones I spoke about yesterday. But today, I managed to find Luffincott by putting in Emmeline Lee, and up popped that whole set. And then I've just saved it because I don't want to lose it ever again. I'm like petrified it's going to disappear. But I think that's a problem. I mean, Susie probably doesn't have the same issue, and I think probably Alex and Darius won't either, because their places are bigger. So they're probably, you know, they're going to come up under a search for a place or a keyword, whereas mine won't and yours won't. You have a lovely moggy there, Alex.
Companion.
Debenham, I didn't have a trouble finding it. But for Aspel, where the cider comes from, I had to put in a name of somebody that I knew who'd actually signed up.
Right.
In 1940, because I knew he was there then.
Yeah.
I found it that way. And even though he died in the war, he's still listed.
Right. Oh, that's good.
The rest of his family's there, but he's actually redacted.
Ah, okay. So yeah, there's your clue there, Ros. I can see you typing.
Yes. All right,
get into it now.
Right. Have a go. Yes. Oh, what can I look for? Somebody nice and unusual.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm easily going to be able to, or do I go for just somebody in my ancestry and their names
way.
Over a lot
just
of
once you've
James
found the
and
whole
Marys
batch, though, it's easy because then you can go back and two.
I mean,
Alex, have you done much, Alex, on your wing place?
I haven't, because wing being rather large, it was going to be prohibitively expensive to access
when it wasn't.
Once you found it. But I understand now you can get it if you have a 12-month subscription with Find My Pastors is included. So I will do that at some point. I haven't done it yet, though.
You can ferret around and see if there's any interesting records. I always like the extra annotations that are on the side. I mean, as I mentioned in the sort of preamble bit, there are quite a few people on mine that are, you know, they're ARP's wardens or special constables and things like that. And there's all sorts of extra bits. And I mean, sometimes some of the letters that are added in green, because they're added in by the NHS later on in time, some of them I look at and I think, what on earth is that? No idea. But it just provides a greater picture, because I'm a bit of a statistics person, being a mathematician originally, and I do like to see how it grows, you know, and just in terms of the size of the Barton, because I've got a Barton in Luffincott, and you can see in like the 1851 census, it's flipping massive, and it's got acres and acres of land, and then by 1939, it's got a farmer, somebody who's an unpaid domestic duties wife, probably, 3 redacted records, so probably children, and that's it. You don't have all the farm servants or carters or domestic servants or cooks that were kind of keeping it all going before. It's just not there. Because they don't need it. The farm's just shrunk so much. I mean, it's still there now. The Barton's still there now, and I think they breed Holstein cows or something crazy, but but it's not like it used to be. They used to farm land. I don't know what they used to do in terms of production of, but it's totally different. Sort of 88 years later, from the 1851 to 1939. I can tell Roz is plonking away. I can see the look in her eyes.
Yeah. It wasn't such an unusual name as I thought. It's come up with 362 results.
Yeah. Maybe need to fine tune it down to a year of birth, give or take a couple of years.
Yes, I think so. I think so.
What were you saying, Alex?
I'm pretty sure once I get into accessing all those pages, I'm going to find myself very frustrated at all the redacted records.
Yeah,
because
and
certainly
possibly
the few pages I've seen
too.
Yeah, and the pages that I've seen for my own ancestors, it's just, every sort of third or fourth line is redacted. It's just ridiculous, and I'd find that really annoying for my one-page study.
But
you do have to
be redacted or not.
No, in a lot of cases they are people who have since died, but outside the range of where they were matching, and it's just too big a hassle to, particularly if they died overseas.
Yeah, exactly. Like I was saying about my grandmother who died on the Canary Islands. So
I think you do have to go into it with the mindset of any little clue is useful. Any little piece of information is useful for your one-place study, rather than it being a set that you could almost get statistics off or anything, because if not all the records are accessible to you, then Yeah.
But in terms of, just the heads of household, in terms of their occupations and things, you could do it just based on that, because most of them will be. And just like I say, for what I like to do in terms of the reconstruction of a property or the reconstruction of a family and trying to piece it all together, you can still kind of do it. And you can like my William Abbott that's got one person redacted on the bottom. You can and some of the redactions are amazing. I don't know if some people in the room might have seen these, where you get a line that goes across and then it dips and then it dips back up again, and you can actually see the record that you're not supposed to be able to see and work out who it is. And it's like, how did your little wibbly thing go so badly? But then you can see the birthday of the person you're not supposed to be able to see and work out who it was anyway. It's not always like that, but it's quite nice for me when it is.
We won't tell them about that.
No, exactly, definitely not. Roz, have you had a little find there? I can see your face going, oh.
Yeah, I think I had a little find. Unfortunately, they live on a farm that looks like it's in the middle of nowhere. So it's not. It doesn't say South Pool. It's Kingsbridge RD, the rural district. But the oldest lady within it is has been transcribed as Marida A. Marrida.
Oh my God. Was it Miranda?
No, she was called Maud Ann.
Oh my God. That's ridiculous.
But they've transcribed her as Marida A.
Oh my goodness.
We say it's ridiculous, but we can't see the handwriting.
That's very true.
Yeah.
Might be
Although
plausible.
it probably is ridiculous anyway.
Yes, I can look at this because it was so long ago that they have actually said yes. All right, you can look at this. But I can't even find it.
There you go. The writing is that bad if you can't see it.
No, it's all sorts of things that I can't see.
Darius, have you had the opportunity of looking through your place for your either ancestors or for your place itself?
I've looked at the places approach. Didn't have access to the full data, and so I could glean a little bit of information. Most of the area that I'm studying is rural, And so I was able to pick up a few of the farm names that I recognized from previous research and do a little bit with that. But I've really got to get a subscription that'll include the access to 1939.
Oh, so you don't have one?
No.
Ah, yeah, because that is a big thing, and it's obviously a big pull for people to try and get that 12-month subscription, isn't it?
Yeah, and there's a gentleman that I carpool with who volunteers at the library a couple of days a week. He's using it a lot right now and has been able to bridge back into the 1800s with a lot of families that he's studying in Lancashire.
Oh, right, just from using the 39 register.
Yeah, he's really got a lot of benefit from it.
So is it quite expensive to get for a world subscription for you over there, or?
Just a little more than what I want to pay. I think.
Good answer.
I'm close to breaking down and doing it.
Yeah, it's like, are you at breaking point? Yeah. But actually, you're gonna do it.
Yeah.
I'm at the same. Yeah, I don't currently
have a 12-month subscription either, Alex.
No.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Gosh, I don't think I could live without it. I'd feel like my left arm had been chopped off.
I got it. I got it sneakily when they were doing a sale and 80% off and all this sort of thing, because otherwise there's no way could I afford it.
It's not cheap. I use it all day, every day, not just for the 39 register, obviously, but yeah, it's a little bit different when you're doing it all day, every day. It certainly makes it a little bit easier to afford, but I don't even know how much it costs a year now, but a lot by the sounds of things. Just goes out the bank. Annual subscription, go.
Yeah.
How many people, Alex, just out of interest, you were saying that your place was quite big. How many people do you have, sort of a number that you have at a particular point in time?
I'm guessing it's more. Oh, I would know these.
Broadly.
Yeah, it's over 2,000. It would be. So.
At any one time.
Yeah.
My
by this time, yeah. It was 1,500 to 2,000 throughout the 1841 to 1901 kind of time frame. So.
Do you know, I've known you for years, and I never would have thought your place was that big from discussions we've had.
Oh, the pain and suffering I go through from having a large place, Kirsty. You just don't understand it with your teeny tiny place.
I think it has different issues, though. Well, partly, as I raised tonight, about trying to find the rugby thing in 1939, but
different issues, different opportunities. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like, when I present for Hangouts about my place study, and he said surname then, it's because Silliphant was in there as well. But when I do my place stuff, it's really hard because actually to create, 25 minutes, half an hour, like I did for tonight, it's really difficult because I just don't have that many people in it or places in it to create that kind of stuff. Whereas for yourself, Alex, it would be like, who do I pick?
Yes, it would. You certainly have a lot to choose from.
Yeah, you can work on your website then, Kirsty.
Yeah.
Yes, your website should be up and finished in no time.
It's up. It's there. It's a place saver and says hi to anyone who's looking. But that's another thing, you see. If you've got a bigger place, more people care about your place and want to engage with you. Whereas I think in all the years I've been doing research, I've probably had about, 10, maybe 20 inquiries ever. And some of those are just people that, they've got people that pass through and they just want to know, was there a baptism there, or was there a marriage there, or whatever. But I think there's very, very few, if anybody else, doing an active study that is connected with it. It was odd, though. I mean, I did have a lady who's actually a professional genealogist in the US who got in touch with me and said, I need to talk to you about TechCot. But of course, she's so busy that we never actually talk about TechCot anyway. But that's it.
I tend to think about my website is, okay, I'm probably never, ever, ever going to get any contacts, but I like to think of it as a little hidden treasure, one of those little nuggets that when you're looking on the net for something, and then you land upon something and you think, whoa, look at this! So I just want my website to be one of those, whoa, look at this type.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's also, I think it's really useful in terms of putting things on there that it's there for the future.
Yeah.
Because if I go under the red bus tomorrow, well, who's going to know what I know?
Yeah.
Nobody.
Right.
Yeah, and we can't put the 1939 register on there because obviously all the issues of reproduction and copyright and all of that jazz. But, you know, we can write about it. We can blog about it, write an article about it, you know, and actually connect all the dots for people on a website. She says, yes, I might be able to do this one day when I have more than 5 minutes of time to actually preserve that for the future, though. Pardon?
Transcribed online and put them on my website.
Sorry, Susie, your sound's a bit dodgy. Couldn't hear that.
I've transcribed all my 1939 registered records.
Yeah.
Put them on my website. Rather than not the actual.
Not the images, but the transcription. Yeah.
That's absolutely fine.
Yeah, exactly.
All of them, all the ones that I found.
We'll just find another little part of your urban district.
Going back to Merida and her transcription. Well, it's one of those ones where it was written so beautifully like that unless you knew, well, I suppose it could be Merida, although people who've been transcribing longer would say, well, he doesn't do his R's like that. Look at the rest of the document. He doesn't do his I's like that. And then they would have realised, no, it's a different name than Merida.
And who's ever heard of Merida anyway?
Well, right. So, I don't know. It is always lovely to see the original brown spidery writing sort of thing, but I think transcriptions are a blessing.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's a starting place.
Yeah, I mean, I've done about a dozen transcriptions of wills that I've put up on Wikitree where I'm collaborating with somebody else.
Oh, yeah.
And so he's able to see, without going to the expense of buying them and downloading them and that sort of thing, he's able to see who was given what and why the wealth has ended up there and not here and that sort of thing.
Yeah. But it's like I said, you know, if we don't have the transcriptions, we haven't got a place to start, so we don't know what records are out there, or they're too expensive for us to purchase anyway. So we should be really grateful for them, although we can moan at the same time, but not too much, hopefully. Not too much.
I mean, come on. Sorry.
Kirsty, I'm just wondering, in the final column on the under instructions, in one of mine I've got something that says PWC 345/1467. Have you any idea what that means?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I have an innate knowledge of every single hieroglyphic that's added, Susie. Yep.
I mean, most of them I know what they are.
No, I have no idea. Some of them are dates. Some of them are dates that have like when the name's been changed by. If a lady's got married and it's got like a date next to it, it will be a rough kind of time when either she was exactly married on that date or that's the date that her name was changed. But no, I haven't got. I mean, what is it? PWC.
PWC.
It could be
345/1467.
It could be just a reference. You know, it's in filing cabinet 347.
Or it could be an employee reference of some sort in terms of, you know, I don't know what, but no, I'm afraid I don't. That's not one that's known to me anyway. there does seem to be quite a lot. I mean, some of them, as I say, they're dates, so you can obviously see that it's like 2 digits dot blah 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 in a year, but some of them seem to be very convoluted. I thankfully don't have any of those in my place records. I don't think. I've sort of flicked through most of them, but I've got odd name changes in terms of ladies changing, you know, from one to another. I've just back actually because I remember there was one on page 4 out of 6. I've only got 6 pages of the 1939 register for my place. I've got looks like Hazel M. Mitchell, who turns into Hazel M. Hole, and there's a DX 18.6.60. So I assume, bearing in mind she was born in 1931, that that's probably been added at the same time as the whole name over the top. But then next to it, there's a CR.283. I've no idea what that is. Not got a clue. But as I say, I've not got too many of those. But they seem that, you know, looking at other pages, there seem to be a huge number, huge number. And I've got sort of C page something off on the right-hand side as well, where it's like they've been recorded on 2 different pages or something weird. So, yeah, very, very strange. I think there are quite a few sort of things online where people try to work out what things stand for. I mean, I've got one I'm just flicking through as we're talking. I've got one that it says on the record, Lewis T. Castellin, which sounds like a really Devon surname. Not. And then on the right-hand side, it says Ludwig Castellin. So, obviously, not particularly British originally, maybe. And then there's one that says on license somewhere lower down. So just on license from RWC Institution at Starcross. So that's an interesting one to look at as well. You know, whether he was, I mean, RWC is not a prison, but he must have been doing something naughty to be on license, and that's added in red. So, yeah, I think it's a brilliant opportunity to build that picture, as we said, you know, earlier on. It's just, there's no other way. I mean, the 1921 census, I'm not particularly inspired by the thought of having that, but, you know, certainly this has really bridged the gap. Oh, I've just found another set of elephants. How exciting. As I go on to page 6 for the first time today. Yeah, oh, cool. Oh, hours of fun and amusement.
Yeah. I know what I'll be doing after this hangout. I'm trying desperately to find Southpool.
Yeah. Well, I mean, literally, the blog for the hangout went out later than we normally would. Because I couldn't bloody find TechCot, so I couldn't write it. So I'm thinking, if I can't find it, I can't write a blog for a hangout that I'm supposed to be doing on Friday. So it's going to be a case of, can you find my place if I couldn't do it? But thankfully, with a bit of digging around on Wednesday, was it Tuesday or Wednesday? I can't remember. But yeah, it was a little bit simpler. Okay, any sort of last questions? I can see that we're getting towards the top of the hour, or whatever hour it may be, wherever we are around the world. No? Mm-hmm. You all just want to get off and start using the 1939 register, don't you? I can tell. All right, well, we'll wrap up there if that's the case and there's no more questions. So thanks very much. I hope it's given you a bit of a, well, it sounds like it's given some people a bit of an impetus to go and look. But anyone who's watching out there and wasn't actually in the room with us, I hope it's provided you with some information about it. I know, obviously, we're a worldwide society and not everyone's place is in England and Wales, but we do have a lot of people, and I'm sure there are a lot of people that do local history and family history, even if it's not their actual place study within England and Wales as well. So hope it's given you some inspiration and diverted you from your boring jobs of today into doing a bit more research. So thanks very much for joining us, whether it's online and live or later on watching it, and feel free to throw me any questions about the 39. I'm certainly not an expert, but I'll give it a go. Don't throw stuff like Susie did, because I don't know the answer to those.
Nothing with sharp corners either.
No. Well, yeah, that's true. All right, so we'll say, well, good night from me, and I'll look forward to hearing people's success stories.
Good night.
Thank you, Kirsty.